everyone, it's Rob, and thanks for listening in today. I greatly appreciate your time. As co-CEO of Image One, I'm humbled to share that this is our 30th year in business. How did that happen? One thing is for sure, 2020 is going to be an interesting year for all of us. This marks my 114th episode. And I want to express my deep gratitude for all of your support and gratitude to my friends Ashish and Jimpa, as well as the team here at Image One for helping to make leading with genuine care a real difference maker in this world. If you haven't added your name to our email list, please do so at donothingbook.com. And if you're a regular listener, you know we've had many important conversations with some amazing people. If you're inspired, please share the podcast with your friends, coworkers, and people in your network. Today, my guest is Jim Dethmer, an absolute gift to the business community and this world. I learned about Jim from a friend, Leah Perlman. She's a talented business coach, artist, author of Dharma Comics, and overall, really thoughtful person. Leah recommended I read Jim's book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. Well, as we were navigating the early challenges of the pandemic in the spring of 2020, I read it, and I want you to know it had a huge impact on my ability to better lead through that time. Jim is a coach, speaker, author, and founding partner at the Conscious Leadership Group. He has personally worked with over 150 CEOs and their teams to integrate conscious leadership into their organizations. Jim also leads monthly forums for select leaders in Chicago and New York and trains coaches through the Conscious Leadership Group. He has spoken at Conscious Capitalism, Wisdom 2.0, Mindful Leadership Summit, Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management, and USC School of Medicine, Greenville. And check this out, conscious leadership is actually a part of the curriculum at USC School of Medicine. He is author of High Performing Investment Teams and, of course, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, which is an Amazon bestseller. Jim and I have something in common. We both love Northern Michigan. It's our soul's home. Today, you will be inspired by Jim's many nuggets of wisdom. I promise you will find 2 or 3 to incorporate into your life right away, and ultimately help you to lead with genuine care with everyone, every day, every time, and with yourself. So please enjoy my chat with Jim. Jim, thanks so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Happy to do so.
So good to see you. I wanted to start with a quote I read from you, actually. It's about the truth. And you say, quote, "I encourage each of us to shine the spotlight of awareness on our lives and tell ourselves the truth about how we don't tell each other the truth," unquote. What does that mean?
What it means to me is that we're humans, and humans are afraid to be fully revealed for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it's because we have some core shame. Sometimes it's because we've had experiences when we're revealed, we experience rejection. So as humans, we've learned to hide and to manage how much of our truth we're letting out. We do it because we're trying to control people's circumstances and situations, right? So I think one of the first things that conscious leaders do is they look back at themselves and they see, how revealed am I? How candid am I? How truthful am I? Without putting any pressure on themselves to change, I just think the first step is self-awareness. You could just simply ask it this way: do I have any withholds from important people in my life? Are there any things I've thought 3 or more times and haven't shared? Are there any secrets that I have? Are there any? And then you start to feel how unrevealed you are in life. And then the next step is, can you start to experience the cost of withholding? Because it takes energy to withhold. It takes energy to manage how we're showing up and how we're managing other people. So what's it costing you to not be fully revealed, to be hiding, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of what I mean by that. And again, I'd go back to, it's just the human condition. We all hide.
Mm-hmm.
Remember in that great Bible story in the book of Genesis, remember after Adam and Eve have the experience of waking up to the truth of what's going on, one of the first things they do is they hide. Remember, that's that great story where they make for themselves, they hide behind fig leaves. I love that, as though they're going to hide from God, by putting a big leaf in front of them. So they hide and then they blame. If you look, the man blames the woman, and they blame the serpent. And that's just the human condition. We hide and we blame because we're afraid to be naked and unashamed.
Mm-hmm. That's good. How can you tell the truth lovingly?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, the first place to begin is that self-awareness of what is my truth. Okay, that's the first place. So you do a ruthless inventory of what is my truth. The second, and this is a really big idea, you learn to hold your truth lightly. It's your truth with a small t. It's not capital T truth. It's not transcendent truth. It's not the truth. Because if you think you've got the truth and you hold a tight grip on it, the probability of you revealing it lovingly goes down dramatically. You'll want to be right about your truth. And people who become masterful at the practice of candor, they don't make revealing themselves about being right. They make it about being known. Mm. So first, discover your truth. Second, hold your truth lightly. And I actually teach people a whole set of steps so they can hold their truth lightly. Like, would you be open to the possibility that the opposite of your truth is just as true? So you develop a little flexibility, you get less rigid. So what is your truth? Can you hold your truth lightly? And then third, what's the most loving way to reveal my truth? So I always start with, what is your truth? Can you hold it lightly? And then simply ask yourself the question, what's the most loving way to reveal it? Now, again, I'm going to reveal it. I'm going to reveal all of it. So when I put loving on it, if people misunderstand love and they confuse it with codependency. And in codependency, I don't reveal my truth because I'm trying to manage your experience. From love, one of the things I do is I grant you full authority over your own experience. So I'm not codependently trying to control your experience. You get to have your feelings. If I reveal my truth, and even if I hold my truth lightly, you might be upset. You might be angry. You might be sad. You might be scared. And one of the qualities of being loving is letting you have your experience. So first, I know my truth. Second, I hold it lightly. Third, I ask what's the most loving way to share it. And fourth, after I reveal my truth, I stay with you all the way through your experience. I don't get to dump and dodge, share my truth and then run on. I reveal my truth and then I stay with you all the way through your experience. Mm-hmm. The ultimate, when I'm teaching on this in corporations and organizations, I'll just go, since you and me, and we kind of both play with the world the same way. Invariably, a question comes up jokingly oftentimes. So, what if, we'll just do the conversation this way. What if my significant other says, how do I look in this dress? What am I supposed to do? Tell her how she looks in the dress? That's the great question, right? It's such a good one. And I say, well, first of all, you have to back up and say, what kind of a relationship am I committed to having with my significant other? Are we committed to having a truthful, honest, revealed relationship? Are we committed to being codependent or co-committed and co-creative? What are we committed to? Back up there first. Because if you're committed to little micro white lies, or if you're committed to never really telling each other truth so you can control and manage the other person, well, then tell her whatever you want to tell her. Like, oh, you look fabulous. But if you're committed to an open, authentic, candid relationship, then you would do these four things. First, you would look and say, what is my truth? Well, my truth is, I don't like the dress. I don't like the shape of the dress. I don't like the color of the dress. My truth is that it's not particularly flattering to her. Okay, that'd be first. Now, second, hold that lightly. Don't be attached to being right about it. Don't say, I've told you before, red isn't your best color. And, stuff that is tight around your waist, isn't good for you. Now I'm proclaiming my truth as though it's true. That's a dangerous position. Rather, I hold my truth lightly. I go, this is just my opinion about the world. My opinion isn't right. It's just my opinion. It's just literally made up in my head. So therefore, I'm happy to tell you my opinion, just as long as we both understand it doesn't mean anything. It's just my opinion. Now, third, what's the most loving way to say it? Sweetheart, I'm happy to give you my opinion. If you'd like it, I'll give you my opinion. And I want to say it so that you know that I'm not real attached to being right about it, and you can do what you want with it. So here's my opinion. Red's not the best color on you. I don't think that particular tight at the waist accentuates your figure in the best way. And just if you asked me, do I like it or not like it? Like, do I like or not like Brussels sprouts? I don't have to make that a moral thing. I don't particularly like it. Now, in a conscious relationship, here's what she'll say. She might say, ooh, ouch, because I was really digging this thing and thought I looked hot. So first thing I want to tell you is I feel a little ouch over here. I feel a little sad and a little scared that maybe my own judgment about my dress is off. And thank you so much for telling me your truth. So number 4, I stay with her all the way through her experience, her ouch, her sadness, her fear, and her appreciation. In my experience, that is one of the cornerstones of a world-class relationship, whether it's personal or professional. I could give the exact same illustration in the context of a high-performing team. One of the reasons teams suboptimize is they don't tell each other the truth. Jack Welch said, the team that sees reality the best wins. That's a good quote. The deal is most of us don't see reality very clearly. We distort reality individually and collectively. So how does a team get to reality the fastest? Well, one of the keys is everybody tells their truth. The same way we talked about. I see my truth, I hold it lightly, I reveal it lovingly, even in the workplace, and I stay with people and listen deeply to them while they respond to my truth. That's one of the keys to high-performing teams in my mind. It's one of the characteristics of great leaders. They create cultures that are conducive to candor. And they do that first and foremost by modeling it and by modeling deep listening. Mm-hmm. So there you go. There's some thoughts about speaking it lovingly.
Love it. I love this motto that you share. Nothing is serious. If it seems serious, shift. Nothing's serious? Can you talk about the idea and talk about shift?
Okay, well, you're jumping in the deep end. I usually wait.
Really?
We wrote this book, 15 Commitments. Yes, you are.
Good. Okay.
We wrote this book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, and the 15 Commitments. And the nothing is serious is commitment number 9. So there are 8 commitments to practice before you get to nothing is serious. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll get to nothing is serious, but let's talk about what we mean by shift. So shift is, the simple question we ask leaders all the time is, where are you? Around the content. It could be the content around supply chain management, or one of your production lines are down, or you've got a bunch of bugs in your code, or you're undercapitalized, or a competitor just took a big chunk of your business, whatever it is. Around that content, where are you? And that's what we call a context question. And what we mean is, around that issue, we use this simple thing, are you above the line or below the line? And all we mean by that is, are you defensive and closed in a threatened state? That's below the line. Or are you above the line, which looks like open, curious, and wanting to learn? That's the context of your consciousness. Are you above or below? Good. Now, you know this because we've talked before, but our experience is most people spend most of their time below the line. That's not a bad thing. It's actually natural and normal. It's being a human. Most humans live life in a threatened state, mildly threatened to significantly threatened. It's because of the nature of our mind. It's because of the nature of our defense mechanisms. We're living life below the line. That's okay. It's the way we survive and stay safe. But living below the line is not the optimal condition for things like creativity, innovation, collaboration. It's good for survival, but it's not good for intimacy with your significant other. Okay, so we got these two states of consciousness, below the line and above the line. Now, shift means, can I locate myself accurately? Like, I'm below the line, no big deal. I'm just a human. In fact, after locating myself, we say the next thing you do is you give yourself a breath of acceptance for being exactly where you are. Today is Tuesday and I'm scared and contracted. No big deal. Can I just accept myself? Then the first question is, where am I? The second question is, can I accept myself? The third question is, am I willing to shift? Regarding the exact same content, a competitor has just taken a big chunk of our business, same content. Am I willing to be with that from above the line instead of below the line? Am I willing to get curious? Am I willing to value learning over being right? Am I willing to see how I co-created this experience? How this experience is here for me and our learning? I start asking a whole different set of questions when I'm above the line than I do when I'm below the line. When I'm below the line, I ask, whose fault is it? Who screwed it up? Who can we blame? Sometimes this is called, like root cause analysis, but it's all rooted in blame. And all blame does is it shuts people down so that they start being defensive and not learning. So shift means, am I willing to change the state of my consciousness? So you asked, if it's serious, shift. Okay, so shift means I'm going to shift from below the line to above the line. Now, one of the things we've observed from working with ourselves and hundreds, thousands of leaders is, one of the indications in life that you're below the line is the thing seems really serious, really serious. Now, this idea of serious, first of all, everybody can see that sometimes they make stuff serious that with a little bit of distance, they see how absurd it was to make it serious, right? So you can think, in the old days when we used to commute to work, we didn't all work from home. You could imagine that you're stuck in traffic and you make it really serious. You get upset, you start to stress yourself. Your body starts to get in a stressed fight, flight, freeze induced reactivity. You're cortisoling and adrenalizing yourself because the traffic jam is really serious. Well, if I asked you 30 years later, how serious does the traffic jam that you were in on Tuesday, in 2002 seem? You'd go, well, it doesn't seem very serious now at all. In fact, I can't remember it. One of the things we'd observe is things become serious when we're too close to them and too invested in them. So this illustration shows that when you get the distance of time, like 30 years, hardly anything seems serious. Like I often say to leaders that I'm coaching, go back to when you were 12 years old and think of everything that seemed serious. Like that you had a pimple on your cheek, or you double dribbled in a basketball game, or the girl you had a crush on, like your best friend, something, just anything you think is serious. How serious does any of that seem now?
Mhm.
And you go, none of it seems serious. In fact, it's actually quite sweet and adorable. Now, in fairness, if I said, think of everything that happened when you were 12, you might think of something that you go, my drunk father physically abused me. And that still feels very serious. I'd go, great, we can handle that differently.
Mhm.
But most of the stuff that most people make serious, if you give it the test of time, it doesn't appear that serious. Or the test of distance,
Yeah.
literal physical distance.
Mhm.
So one of the things we say is we make stuff serious when we make it mean something it doesn't mean.
Mhm.
And this is what we do when we make the traffic jam serious. We make it much bigger than it really is. Now, I might be late for a meeting. I might actually miss an important appointment, but it becomes really serious when we make it a referendum on what we call our core needs, whether I have approval, control, or security, the three core needs of all humans. So when I make the traffic jam a referendum on whether I'm lovable, I've made it really serious. When I make it a referendum on whether I'm in control of the things that most matter in life, I can't control the traffic, but the things that most matter are still under my control. I make it serious. And when I make it a referendum on something like my safety and ultimate security, I've made it really serious. The job of the mind, by the way, is to make stuff serious that isn't serious so we pay attention to it. Because the mind thinks that if we don't pay attention to it, it's going to bite us in the butt. So the mind's job, literally the mind, is to make all kinds of stuff serious in order to motivate us to do something about it. Of course, if you become observant of your mind, what you discover is that's a trap, because the mind makes all kinds of stuff serious and it believes that unless I think something is serious, I won't do anything about it. And that's just not true.
Mhm.
So that's what we mean by serious. So one of the questions I ask myself all the time when I'm in a triggered or reactive state, I ask myself this question: am I making something serious that really doesn't need to be serious?
Mhm.
The more I can be, the opposite of making something serious is to live life like play, like a child at play. And play is unself-conscious absorption in the moment in a way that allows for me to be totally creatively present. Unself-conscious absorption in the present moment that allows me to bring my full creative self. I have these 7 grandchildren, and when I watch them play, that's the way they are in the world. They don't make stuff serious. That doesn't mean they're not focused. They can be very focused, but they don't make it a referendum on their identity until we teach them to do that. So I'm either making life serious or I'm like a child at play. And my observation is that leaders who lead from playfulness are meaningfully more impactful.
Mhm.
Leaders who are contracted in seriousness create threat-based reactivity in themselves and in their teams. I think that's important distinction.
And the decision making changes in those two states.
Totally, right? When I'm in a threatened state, well, just think about it. The ultimate thing is literally threatened for your life. If you're out, you and I both live in northern Michigan, and I live near the woods, and there are cougars and some bears and things like that around in the woods. If I'm out walking in the woods and I see a bear, I'm surprised and see a bear. The nature of the way I'm wired is I go into fight, flight, freeze, or faint reactivity. It's just survival. And I'm simply going to do what I think will create the greatest probability of me surviving. Now, if I'm a naturalist and I know a little bit about whether it's a brown bear, a black bear, or a grizzly bear, then I might choose to flee, freeze, faint, play dead. If I'm not any of those, if I'm just a human walking through the woods, I'm just going to do whatever my reactive pattern is. So let's say I see a black bear walking, 20 yards ahead of me, and I start running. And then you were to say to me, okay, Jim, while you're running away from this bear that you think could kill you, I'd like you to do some high level reasoning and problem solving. I'd like you to innovate a new product line. It would be totally absurd because all that matters is my survival. Now, that's such an obvious illustration. Everybody gets that, right?
Yeah.
But this is what happens in the workplace. People believe there are bears out there which are a threat to their survival. They're not a threat to their physical survival, they're a threat to their ego. So whether my manager is approving of me or not is a threat to my ego. I'm not going to die if my manager doesn't approve of me. But if I go below the line and get reactive and then try to do creative, innovative, improvisational problem solving, I'm literally in the wrong brain state. My brain chemistry is goofed up. So if you think about what's available to you when you're making something serious and what's available to you when you're in a brain state of play, they're two totally different things. So great leaders know how to create cultures that are conducive to play. One of the ways this gets misunderstood, not so much anymore, but in the old days, when Google first, started to be famous about their culture, and like they had a slide from one floor to another and foosball tables and, and video arcades all over the place. People misunderstood and they thought, okay, we need to buy a ping pong table and put it in our employee lounge, and that will make us like Google. That wasn't it. In those days, the code that they had really cracked is they figured how to make work itself like play. It wasn't that coders spent tons of time playing video games, though they might have. It's that coding was playful. And they learned how to create cultures where people were empowered to play. Now, a lot of those people who originally did that have lost a lot of that. We've worked with many of those cultures over the years.
Yeah.
They've lost it because all of a sudden, once they got successful and big, they got serious. All of a sudden, they had something really important to protect.
Yep.
The thing about a lot of entrepreneurs, even though they're literally risking everything, it's a do or die thing. When they're in their full-on entrepreneurial genius, they are like a kid at play. It's just a game, even though the stakes are meaningful. And then they start to succeed. I've worked with so many entrepreneurs over the years. Now, all of a sudden, they've gotten funding. They've gotten another round of funding. All of a sudden, they've gotten a reputation. And all of a sudden, they're serious. And this is one of the, in my mind, one of the, things that starts the trap of moving you from an entrepreneurial spirit to that bureaucratic mindset is we have something serious that we don't want to risk. Whereas great entrepreneurs are able to keep that playful, non-serious thing going for a long time. And that is because they've cultivated it on the inside. That makes sense?
It makes total sense. I love it. I want to talk about decision making, and maybe if you could touch on the three centers of intelligence and how we can access them regularly: head, heart, gut.
Yeah.
I think that's such a unique skill to be able to cultivate.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Love to. Yeah. So for simplicity, let's say there are three centers. There might be more, but usually when we start working with people, we just like to keep it simple. So the head analyzes, evaluates, is information oriented. The data that it likes is what we normally call data. Okay, that's the head. Most of us are very familiar with that. Most of your audience have overdeveloped head centers. The heart center is the space of emotion. What is my emotional world telling me? And it's actually the primary place of relationship. How does this decision affect relationship? How do I feel about this decision? How do others feel about this? And by the way, this is changing largely because of the work of Dan Goldman over the years, and now many, many others on the value of emotional intelligence. But I still work with firms who want to be data driven. There's no place for emotion in the workplace. I tell them, first of all, that's an absurd way to try to live. And second, it's impossible. When people tell me we only make analytical, data driven decisions, I say, you're dangerous. And you're dangerous because you don't see the role that emotion is playing in how you're collecting data, how you're being with data. Most of the, if you just go back to the behavioral finance traps, what are they, 19, 20, 21 of them, whatever they are, most of those are where emotion interface with information. So the goal is not to make unemotional decisions. The goal is to be emotionally intelligent, to be emotionally aware. As you start to evaluate a decision, in addition to all the different data sets that we're going to want to bring to it from our head, we also want to spend time analyzing what data sets we're bringing from our heart. Are we scared? Are we sad? Are we angry? Are we in a defensive posture? Are we excited? Are we creative? Are we playful? Unless we're aware of that and how that is informing our decision making, we have a massive blind spot. And then the third center is the gut. And this is the last one to come to the party. In fact, we've known about IQ, your gray matter, how analytically, and then now there are 19 forms of intelligence, but classic IQ. And now we know about EQ, that's the heart space. And now the next thing that's coming in is what's called BQ, it's body intelligence. And this is the idea that literally as animals, our body is our first line of awareness in the world, and it's giving us all kinds of information. Now, the truth of the matter is, most of us were taught to cut off our body, especially any of us who were competitive athletes. We weren't taught to listen to our body. If we listened to our body, we wouldn't be able to overcome fatigue. We wouldn't be able to overcome injury. So we were taught to literally disassociate from our body. Now, this again has gone away. World-class athletes now are taught to be incredibly tuned into their body as a set of information. But most of us are cut off from our body, especially if we had meaningful trauma as a child. Meaningful trauma is what causes us to dissociate from our body and literally to put a callus over our heart. Well, world-class decision-making is a process where we consult all three centers, both in us individually and in those who are making the decision. So we actually teach a whole decision-making process where in the process, people are asked, what do you think? What do you feel? What body sensations are present? Now that third one, what body sensations are present? First, I have to learn to be tuned into my body sensations, and then I have to practice learning what those sensations are telling me. Like what leaders discover is they discover that, you know what, anytime we're in a personnel decision and I experience myself with nausea, it's telling me the answer is no. Now, you might want to check, do you have the flu? Are you hungover? If it's not that, if everything else is normal, you go, wow, here's that feeling, butterflies in my stomach. I've had a million times. That's a fear-based response. There's something here I better pay attention to. Now, you could get there through doing analysis. You could get there through emotional intelligence, but the body is telling you something. So that's what we mean by the three centers. That's what we mean about this holistic decision making. And we find it to be, people often say, oh my God, that's going to take so long. Well, we say, once you learn to make decisions this way, it's so much faster, literally in the decision process. But also it saves you so much time in rework and do-over and the drama that ensues from bad decision making. So that's what we mean by three centers of intelligence and holistic decision making.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're big fans of this tool called the Enneagram. We think it's the best personality instrument there is. There are 9 types. And it's interesting because in the Enneagram, they're broken out. 3 of the types are head centers, 3 of the types are heart centers, and 3 of the types are gut centers, which means all of us have a predispositional bias towards one of the 3 centers. And we ought to know what our bias is, and we ought to know how to cultivate the other centers so that we are literally balanced, a good, healthy tripod in our decision making.
Great. So we have an Image One University at our company, and one of the workshops that we teach is called The Path. During the path, we share with our team how we intend to get from A to Z to our 2026 vision. But as part of that, what we're really teaching is that while you may like the security of this nice, beautiful plan that goes from A to Z, it's more like a very extensive hike where we're going to be veering off and going which way and not, and because, you know, things happen in life. And I was thinking about this recently because I was working on it, and I'd like to ask you about your path. I mean, we all have paths with our companies or with ourselves personally. And you had a very interesting path because you started off early on as a minister. And I just would like you to kind of take it from there and kind of how your path went.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big category. What is the path of my life? Let me see what I want to say about that. Okay. Here's what I would say about pathology.
That's great. I never knew that was a word, but I like it.
Yeah. Well, we think of pathology as disease.
Yeah.
But if we think path-ology,
yeah.
What is the study of a path? Okay. Here'd be my observation. For all of us, by the way, individuals and partnerships and teams and organizations, for almost all people on paths, there is a true north. There is a true north. I might not know what the true north is. I might not see it. You can feel the true north when you walk the path a while and then look back. Because the true north will be what you have actually been up to. That's what true north is. True north isn't what you say you want to be up to. We bullshit ourselves a lot, or we live under big shoulds or socialized ideas of what we ought to be. True north is, what are we actually up to? Okay, so when we can discover what our true north is, it's incredibly powerful and liberating. So now I'm 67 years old. As I look back over my path, and I knew this pretty early, but let's just say I discovered my true north pretty early. My true north has to do something with something of statement like this: discovering peace, ending personal suffering, being happy, taking away the ache in the center of my chest. So as a little kid, I think I was probably subclinically depressed. I never went to a doctor, but I had a lot of existential angst. And even though outwardly, socially, I was a pretty normal functioning kid, you know, I played sports and was pretty good at sports and was academically pretty good and, you know, achieved and accomplished and so on and so forth. But underneath all of that, I knew from the time I was a little kid, I was lonely. I knew that there was pain in the center of my chest. Now, parentheses, I was raised in a pretty neurotic family, although now that I've known thousands of leaders, most people are raised in pretty neurotic. Most people weren't raised by some combination of the Buddha and the Virgin Mary. Most people had screwed up families of origin. My particular version of screwed up is that my dad was a rageaholic and he sexually abused my sister. My mother was an alcoholic. My older brother had all kinds of neurotic tics. So, that's just typical neuroses, a little bit of, some abuse and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I don't say that lightly. I've done years of psychotherapy on it and stuff like that. So I don't mean to make light, but,
Of course.
but that was the water in which I swam. Well, what that produced inside of me was depression, existential angst, loneliness. Well, from the time I was a little kid, I've been looking for how to experience the resolution of that. What do you want to call that? Happiness, peace, equanimity, freedom, love. Okay. So that's what I've been up to. Now, I went to college and majored in business management because my dad was a businessman. But I wasn't asking questions about ROI. I went to classes, but I was just always looking for, does this bring me happiness? Now, I wasn't doing that consciously. So I graduated from college, went to work for a couple of years. It wasn't long of being a straight up businessman before I thought, this isn't taking away the ache in the center of my chest. So I'd had a spiritual experience in my teens, early 20s. So I decided I'm going to go study that. So I went to graduate school in theology and I pursued that. And that took me to being a minister because I thought there might be answers to this question of ultimate fulfillment, happiness, peace, whatever there. And my particular brand of that was Christianity, evangelical Christianity back then.
Mhm.
And, Jesus made some pretty profound claims about peace and love and happiness and the kingdom of God being on the inside. So I spent about 15 or 20 years devoted to that. And there was a career associated with that. And that career led me to, at the end, I was one of the ministers at the largest church in the United States and spoke to thousands of people a week. And there was some meaningful healing that took place at the inside. But now I'm 40 years old and I look and I go, that ache is still there. This isn't taking it away. So I quit my job. And I had no idea what I was going to do. But my true north was pulling me towards something. We say all the time, pain pushes us until a vision pulls us. And I had both pain and I had a vision of something different. So then I started exploring all these other things that I've learned about over the last 30 years. And now at 67, I would tell you, most of the time, I experience profound peace, equilibrium, uncaused joy, not circumstantial happiness. Everything that I think True North was calling me to as a kid has been realized. So that's my personal path. The other thing that's true about me, all of my life, everything I've ever found that I thought worked, I tell other people about it. So that became my career. My career was as a teacher in church or as a private practice counselor, and now as a coach, consultant, writer, speaker, podcast doer. Now I just say to people, none of the stuff that I've found is original, but it works. So my path is to continue to experience the truth of every now moment, which is the only place I can ever be happy and fulfilled. I can't be happy in the future or happy in the past, only this now moment. So I have loads of practices for that. That is my path. And then to use my gifts to serve the world in the best way I can to help more people end suffering. That's my big idea. I just want to support the expansion of conscious leadership so people can suffer less. Now, to your point around in our business, the Conscious Leadership Group, do we have a plan? We actually do now. We're becoming kind of like a real business. And we've got this fabulous consultant who's helping us. He's magical at helping us plan, and we have plans. But like the book of Proverbs says, man plans and God laughs. I think that's good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not saying we shouldn't plan. And the more I plan according to True North, the more possibility the plan will align with what it is I'm up to. So the more I know True North, the more possibility there is that the more I know that I'm really trying to get to downtown San Francisco, the greater possibility is I'll come up with a plan to get to downtown San Francisco. So we know what we're up to, but there are a jillion ways to get to downtown San Francisco. Start with, I might think the best way to get there is to fly. I go to the airport shut down, there's no flights. Great. What's the next thing? I don't make that a problem. I just go, life's an adventure. What's the next thing? That's what you're doing. So in your class at work, which is so beautiful, you say, here's our path to 2026. But you kind of probably do that with a wink in your eye going, who knows? I mean, did you know 12 months ago you'd be running your business in the face of a pandemic? Heavens no. You have no idea what's going to happen in the next 12 months. That's okay. Doesn't mean you don't plan. Doesn't mean you don't know what true north is or have approximation of it, but you live lightly in the now moment. This is what I said. Part of being a free person is being able to bring your full creative self to this now moment. That's what great entrepreneurs and leaders do. Doesn't mean they don't have a plan, but they're not constricted in fear-based threatened reactivity, so they can be creative in an improvisational dance with this now moment. Mm-hmm. That's masterful leadership. That's what you're doing, right? So pathology actually just becomes, can I dance with this now moment?
Mm-hmm. That's right. How can you share some of your personal practices that allow you to come back to this now moment?
Sure. Yeah, happily. So I call them my hygienes, like if you're going to be a human, you have hygienes, like you brush your teeth and maybe you might even floss your teeth and, you eat, complex carbohydrates and lean protein. And, you have these things that optimize the well-being of your machine, right? Good. So I have those when it comes to practicing my life. So, and they're very specific, like every day I meditate. I basically don't miss a day of meditation. And I have very specific meditation practices. Every day I do that because it reminds me of the truth of what is. So I do a sitting meditation practice, and then I do glimpse practices all day long. Because what we've learned about meditation is that it's not so much what you do in the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour that you sit. It's what you do in momentary glimpses all day long. I've actually used technology for years. I don't anymore to help me with those glimpses. I download an app to my iPhone called Mind Jogger, and it just randomly reminds me of a particular question 6 to 8 times a day. And my commitment to myself is when it pops up, I will stop and glimpse. So I meditate and I glimpse all day long. I do conscious breathing practices. I particularly am a fan of Wim Hof. So I do Wim Hof breathing 20 to 30 minutes a day in the morning because I believe that breath is incredibly important to full aliveness. So I breathe as a practice in the morning, and then I breathe throughout the day. One of the primary shift moves, back to your initial question, is when I'm contracted and in a reactive state, I breathe because breathing shifts my blood and brain chemistry. The Navy SEALs know this, so they teach box breathing.
Yeah.
Yoga knows this. So I breathe. So I'm giving you very specific practices. I do movement every day. I practice yoga now. It's one of the things that came to me during the last era of the pandemic. My wife Debbie and I started doing yoga every day. I do yoga every day, both as a practice in the morning and as a shift move. So when I'm contracted and frozen in a particular body posture, I learn how to shift my body. So I meditate, I glimpse. I do Wim Hof breathing, and I do breathing as a shift move. I move in yoga and pickleball and long walks, and I move my body when it's contracted. So there are 4 very specific hygienes that I do every day. I also practice gratitude or appreciation as a hygiene every day, because I find that when I live in a state of appreciation, the entire world actually shows up differently. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are 5 hygienes daily. Now, other practices that I do, I go back to those questions that I shared earlier. I'm regularly asking myself, where am I? I do what I call a consciousness check. Am I open or am I closed? Am I curious or am I defensive? Am I committed to learning or am I committed to being right? And I've become really good at sensing when I'm closed. The second question I ask myself is, can I accept myself? I do lots of loving kindness practice because one of the things that destroys leaders is they lack self compassion. I do loving kindness as a particular form of meditation, metta meditation. I do it as a particular form of meditation, and then I practice it throughout the day. So, and the third thing I ask myself is when I'm stuck, will I shift? And then I ask, how will I shift? And I'm giving you a bunch of shift moves that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I say it this way. I've decided that the game that I'm playing in life is how present can I be? Like I've told you before, I love to play pickleball. I love pickleball. I love to compete. Pickleball has a whole set of rules and it's got a whole set of practices. I bought a machine. I hit hundreds of reps a day because I want to really be good. I have an instructor. Like I'm on it. Pickleball is a game. And even though it's playful for me, I make it meaningful. I'm not out there to lose. I don't like playing with people who are just out there screwing around unless I'm with my kids and we're just going to screw around. In
Mm-hmm.
others, I'm playful, but I'm there. I'm present. Good.
Yeah.
Life to me is just a game. The game I'm playing is how present can I be? That's the game I've chosen to play. How present can I be individually? How present can I be with my life partner, Debbie? How present can I be with my kids and grandkids? How present can I be with my team at work? How present can I be with my clients? And so I've got a whole set of practices that support me to be present and specifically to notice when I'm not so I can get back into being present. Does this make sense? Is this what you're asking?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And what's going through my mind is somebody who might be listening and saying, "Oh my God, that's a lot of stuff."
Right.
Can you talk briefly about the life's journey that you've been on to incorporate these things? It's not like last week you decided to do all this.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And again, I want to say, remember the game that I'm playing based on my true north of ending suffering, experience peace and equanimity, being a conduit of love in the world. Now, that's my true north. That's not somebody else's true north.
Mm-hmm.
But based on that being my true north, the game I'm playing is how present can I be? Okay. What's the game Roger Federer is playing? To be the best tennis player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if you said to Roger Federer, how do you live life? And he said, well, here's what I do. And he goes through his routine. He goes, here's what I eat and what I don't eat. Here's how much support I get from my body, how much physio, how much massage, here's what I do around my equipment. Here's what I do around my sports psychology. Let's say I'm just a casual tennis player and I go, okay, that's great. There's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm going to do that because I play tennis once a week with the guys and the gals down at the local club. Well, listening to Federer's routine would be absurd. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, what I just gave you is what I do to play the game I'm playing. Every CEO that I coach, well, that's not true anymore. Very rarely does a CEO that I'm coaching say that the game they're playing in life is how to be totally present. So why would they want all of my routines? They're playing a different game. The game that CEO is playing, it might be how to be the best possible leader I can be. How to make $100 million by the time I'm 40. I don't care. I just want to help them discern, discover, and declare the game they're playing. What is their true north? Then we're going to build a package of practices that support them getting there. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So you just asked me, what do I do? Well, I do all this stuff to which most people would say, that's crazy. I don't have time to do all that. It is crazy because you're not wanting to play the game I'm playing. And my game isn't better than your game. It's just the game I was meant to play. Now, what is true about me is I've been ruthless about knowing what game I'm playing and being devoted to it since I was a teenager. Now, the game has been tweaked and changed a little bit, but it's still basically that same game. So what I say there is, regardless of what your true north is and what your game is, people who are clear and devoted and ruthless tend to win at the game they're playing. There is a place for discipline. There is a place for devotion to your game. Federer is devoted to his game.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger Woods is devoted to his game. Elon Musk is devoted to his game. Musk is playing a totally different game than I'm playing in life.
Mm-hmm.
I totally respect him for being clear about his game. Donald Trump is devoted to his game.
That's true.
The problem is we all got confused early on about what game he was playing. I think he might have gotten a little confused too. But you can't say he's not devoted to his game. So what I ask leaders is, what game are you playing? Mm-hmm. What's your true north? And then what are your practices? You ought to be able to list your practices, leader, just the way I did. Like every day I do cardio because I know that if I'm working with a leader right now, is one of the leading hedge fund managers in the world. We were coaching this weekend. He's been ruthless about his physical discipline, but we were talking about his energy management. And he realized, he's turned 40, 42. He realized his energy is sagging in the afternoon. So we did a little energy audit. This week, he's implementing a second workout. He does his first workout at 5:30 in the morning. Now he's implementing a midday physical workout. Why? Because he likes to work out? Well, he actually does, but that's not why. It's so that he gets another 3 hours of being unbelievably clear in his decision making. If I said to him, tell me your practices, deconstruct your decision making as an investor, he could do the same thing with that I just did with mine. So I think the takeaway for your listeners ought to be, okay, what game am I playing? And do I know my practices? And could I articulate them? And am I devoted to them? And if I don't, what am I going to do to clarify my game and determine what practices are mine to do to succeed in my game? Does that make sense?
I love that. Thank you for that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jim, thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to share that I might have missed? Anything, I mentioned you beforehand. I mean, I've got pages and pages of notes here. So, but I want to make sure if I missed anything that you have the opportunity to share.
I'm smiling because my cuckoo clock just went off.
Yeah, I hear it. It's great.
My cuckoo clock, by the way, I bought it for Debbie one time when I was in Germany. It's horrible at keeping time. So I fired it as a timekeeping device, and I use it now as a reminder to get present. So as a practice,
that's great.
Whenever the cuckoo clock makes a noise, I just take a breath. It's another illustration of how to set up your world to support you to do what it is you're doing in the world. Rob, I can't think of, you and I could talk for hours. We could just keep going and going and going.
Great.
But I think for what it is that our path invited us to play with today, we've played with it.
Beautiful.
And so if your listeners are interested in this, one of the things that we're committed to is making all this information and this technology around being a conscious leader available. It's all on our website. It's almost all free. We just want to give it away so people's lives can be changed.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm sure you'll do this, give them the reference points for where they can get a hold of that material.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And many thanks to you. I mentioned to you, and I will say this at the outset in the introduction, I got introduced to your book and you through a friend, Leah Pearlman. And I got myself to read the book right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I thank you for that because it was very useful as we navigated ourselves and continue to navigate ourselves, both me personally as a leader and our leadership team. So I thank you for that work and your website. Just to build on what you said, I've been on your website quite a bit. And there is a lot of information on there and it's excellent. It's very useful. In fact, I have the 15 commitments up on one of my browsers and I scroll through it throughout the day and check in on different things. So many thanks to you for all that.
You're so welcome. And thank you for what you're bringing into the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for this conversation.
Likewise. And, to all the loyal listeners of the Leading with Genuine Care podcast, I greatly appreciate you spending time with us today. And as always, I wish you much love and gratitude.